I froze dead center on the sidewalk when her phone lit up, hubby, emblazoned across the caller ID. The gym parking lot was still 6 blocks away, but time went elastic, every heartbeat dragged out like a freight train. I remember thinking, that can't be right. My chest tightened so fast I thought I'd rip my own ribs. I'd spent 4 months building up the courage to even stand beside her in the weight room. Now I was staring at proof that everything I believed about this relationship was a sham. I've never been a guy who's good at reading people. At 24, I still felt like I was limping through life, borrowing confidence off every guy I'd ever envied. Before her, I'd never even held hands with a woman, let alone slept with one. In my head, I was that awkward kid who got picked last in dodgeball because, well, I never got picked, but you get the point. So when I met Tara at the squat rack that February afternoon, something clicked. She was 29, sharp as a tack, and she made me laugh without even trying. Over deadlifts and protein shakes, I convinced myself I'd finally slid into a version of life where I mattered. For months in, our dates felt bulletproof. Sushi joints I'd research, Netflix binges where she'd pretend to let me pick something stupid, and late-night drives letting me spool my thoughts out loud. Whenever I flinched or hesitated, like when she suggested we take things further, she brushed it off as nerves. I was a virgin, after all. I told myself that was normal. In my gut, I felt like a project she'd taken under her wing. Let me teach you how to be a man, her eyes seemed to say. And I wanted it. Wanted the respect. Wanted to belong. So that Thursday night, when she leaned across the booth at that dimly lit tapas bar and whispered she wanted to go back to her place, I lied. I said I had work at 6 a.m. too early to be ready for anything intimate. My heart thumped in my ears. If I'd been honest, I'd have broken before she even closed her mouth. Once I got back to my apartment, shame flooded me so hard I puked up last week's takeout. I stared at my phone and thought, what if she's a serial liar? What if she's hiding worse shit? I scrolled through pictures on her feed, looking for clues. Her vacation snaps, her coffee shop selfies, a few tagged photos with a guy I didn't recognize. I wanted to bury my head, but something in my chest, pure dread, told me to keep digging. Less than 2 hours later, I was messaging her, friend, on Facebook, hoping for an explanation. Hey, random question, is Tara, married? No reply. So I typed her name into Google, clicked on a news article, then scrolled to the bottom. There it was. Local yoga instructor, Tara Benson, files for marriage license renewal. Married, to some guy named Eric, with a ring buttressed by diamond halos. My palms went slick, my vision tunneled, and I swear I heard my heart snap in two. I closed my laptop, but I couldn't close my mind. For the next 24 hours, I lay in bed unable to eat, unable to work out, unable to do anything but replay every conversation we'd had. Her laughter in the car. The way she touched my arm when she thought I wasn't looking. The sushi dinner where I paid $60 because I wanted to treat her right. All of it felt like a betrayal laced through with my own stupidity. Finally, I dug up her husband, Eric, a civil contractor I found on LinkedIn. He'd posted a photo weeks ago of them camping in Yosemite. My blood ran cold. They looked happy, real happy. By then, my mom had heard about my meltdown. She's always been the type to speak plainly. If you have proof, he deserves to know. No lectures, no guilt-tripping, just that flat-out logic I needed. So I spent Friday collecting screenshots, calendar invites, our since-deleted text threads, photos of dinners I'd paid for. I even had the ghosted flight receipts inside my hidden email folder. The next morning, before dawn, I crafted an anonymous account and messaged Eric. I'm not here to start drama. I just want to share proof that your wife is cheating on you. Let me know if you want everything. Then I blocked the account and sat on my hands waiting. Almost 24 hours passed. I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment like a caged dog, checking my phone every 5 minutes. When his reply finally came, I suspected. Thank you? It landed like a fist in the gut. He said he'd been looking for answers, hired a private investigator for a dump truck of cash, but never found this kind of direct proof. He wasn't mad, he was disappointed. And he asked if there was anything he could do to repay me. I told him, help someone else someday. Because the last thing I wanted was more emotional strings. That was it. My mouth went dry. I stared at the ceiling. No victory surge, no satisfaction, just this hollow ache. I blocked her on everything, phone, socials, every outlet she could have used to contact me. I didn't want to hear her excuses, didn't want to see her puppy dog eyes. In a way, I felt like I'd saved her husband half a year of misery. But mostly, I felt like a fool. I'm not the type who jumps into things without thinking. At 24, I've learned to analyze situations like a spreadsheet, pros in column A, cons in column B. But when I saw her for the first time, stacking plates by the dumbbells at the 24-hour fitness, I dropped my spreadsheet on the floor and my brain locked out. She had this laugh that sounded like shattered glass and rolling thunder, impossible to ignore. Over the next few weeks, we traded nods, then one day she asked if she could work in on my squat form. I watched her correct my hips, her voice low and assured, and thought two things. 1, she has no idea what she's doing, and 2, I can't believe I get to talk with her. We swapped numbers that evening. Me. What's your schedule? I'll come whenever. Her. I'm here afternoons, I'll text you. That night, I laid in bed feeling like I'd won a lottery I didn't even buy a ticket for. At first, it was simple: gym, coffee, dumb jokes about leg day torture. After 3 weeks, we started texting off and on, flirty but guarded. She never mentioned a boyfriend. I never asked. In my head, I chalked her silence up to professional boundaries. But I should have smelled something foul. Her texts always ended right when I started to feel comfortable. Around week 4, she invited me to a small rock climbing hut. I showed up in cargo shorts, felt out of place next to her climbing shoes and harness. She laughed, clipped me into a safety line, and got me through a route I didn't think I could climb. While I dangled 20 feet up, I remember thinking, this is what it feels like to trust someone. Later, after a post-climb burger, she told me how much she liked my dry sense of humor. I felt like I'd floated through clouds all week. Week 6, I paid for our first dinner at a fusion Mexican spot, shrimp tacos, jalapeno margaritas. I was terrified to let my card hover over $50, but she went easy on the "you're such a sweetheart" lines. I left feeling like $1,000,000. Over the next 2 months, I tried to be responsible, spreadsheets of our budgets, splitting dinner checks more often, making sure I kept my apartment tidy, bought groceries so she wouldn't think I was a slob. I even rearranged my work schedule. 3 nights a week, I closed late, but I never complained. I was happy she was in my life. Looking back, there were clues. She'd dodge questions about weekends. Oh, I've got a thing with an old friend. Or flake on a casual, Sunday hike because my buddy needs me at her place. Whenever I pushed, she'd get that subtle look, eyelids half closed, jaw set, like I was about to breach a dam of lies. I shrugged it off, she's private. But now I see it. She was carving out pieces of her life she made sure I never saw. When Eric messaged me, I felt this weird mix of relief and nausea. Relief that I'd done something honest, nausea that my world had been a sham. I stayed at my mom's house that night. My mom, no nonsense, straight talker, saw me pacing like a wolf. She said, "You did right." "But what now?" I had no answer. My throat went raw from staying silent. My mind was a battlefield of, should I be mad at myself? Versus, how do I move on? The next morning, I logged into work and tried to focus on my barbell programming. I stuttered through reps with clients who noticed my sweat was from panic, not from training. I couldn't fake it, and I didn't try to. I told my best friend, Mark, he's the sort of guy who calls a spade a spade. He replied, "Bro, she played you for chump change, literally. But you stood your ground." He pushed me to take double shifts, to channel my energy into something solid. So I lifted heavier than ever that week, but not because I was angry, because I needed to feel control somewhere. I pulled up her Instagram once more, pictures of her and Eric camping, all smiles. It was like I was looking at a vacation brochure for a life I thought we shared. I thought about all those times she touched my arm, how I shrugged it off as endearment. In truth, I was a convenient pit stop until she got home. That night, I drove through an industrial neighborhood, just moving, looking at streetlights flicker on. My knuckles were white around the wheel. I realized I hadn't blinked all the way home. I felt like I was waking up after a years-long nap. I tried to get back to normal. I went to the gym 3 nights that week, but my barbell jumps fell off. My strength was there, but my mind kept darting to her placeholder scent that clung to my hoodie. I avoided my usual playlist and switched to podcasts about recovering from toxic relationships. I didn't want platitudes. I wanted facts, logic, something concrete I could bury myself in. Mark cornered me one Friday after open gym and said, "Dude, go out. Meet someone new. Don't wait around for a pity party." Part of me craved that, random drinks, random laughs, but another part felt raw. I told him, "I can't just date for the sake of it. I need something genuine." He shrugged. "Genuine comes when you accept what happened. Otherwise, you'll just pick the wrong girl again." That cut deep. Every man-to-man conversation since this began ended with me eating my own pride. I recognized the pattern. Whenever I raised a red flag, I got shut down. "You're overthinking it," or guilt-tripped into silence. It wasn't just her. I'd been letting life's circumstances sweep me along without drawing firm lines. I started to analyze every interaction, her texting cadence, her excuses, her tone. It still stung, but I saw how she weaponized distance and gave me just enough attention to keep me hooked. That was manipulation, pure and simple. And I realized I'd let it happen because I was desperate for connection. It was a lesson I didn't want but needed. 2 weeks after I ghosted her, I ran into Tara at the juice bar near my apartment. She stood there, sunflower blonde hair in a messy bun, startled when our eyes met. The place was half empty. We were 6 feet apart, surrounded by green plants and the hum of blenders. "Hey," she said, voice casual, like I was the one who ghosted her. I swallowed. My palms were slick. I said, "Don't call me like that." My words came out clipped, my tone steeled. "I know you're married." She blinked, then pressed her lips together, jaw tensing. I can explain." I laughed without humor. "Save it. Why lie to me for 4 months? Why pretend?" My voice wasn't yelling. It was cold, precise, the kind of tone people use when they're delivering bad news at work. She looked away. I noticed how her hair flicked against her neck, like a soldier ducking orders. "You weren't supposed to find out." I leaned forward. "So tell me, who else was in on that little secret? Your husband? Your best friend? Or was I just your personal thrill until you got home?" My chest rattled with the words, but I refused to show tears. I refused to let her see me as anything but composed. Her eyes shimmered. "It was complicated. Eric and I, have been drifting." She sighed, sounding older than her 29 years. "I didn't know how to end it. She trailed off. I shook my head. "You knew exactly what you were doing. I paid for dinners thinking I was building something real. I moved my schedule around. I even told my boss I needed Fridays off." My throat constricted on a lump of rage and sorrow. "How do you sleep at night, knowing half of me was built around your lies?" Tears formed in her eyes, raw, wet, the sight of them almost made me flinch. But I pressed on. "Your husband deserves better than your coin-flip loyalty. And yeah, I get that relationships die, but you didn't give me a chance. You used me." She took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry." I studied her, really studied her, for what felt like an eternity. She looked exhausted, as if carrying my heartbreak telegraphed back to her was heavier than any confession. I nodded once. "That's not enough." Without another word, I turned and walked out. The cheap tiles clicked under my feet as I left her there, a silhouette behind the juice bar glass. I felt tears sting, but I didn't wipe them. There was something freeing about letting the hot rain down my face, even if it came from my own fists of emotion. In the days that followed, I heard from Eric a few more times. He said he filed for divorce. I watched her vanish from the local yoga circles. No more Instagram posts, no more group classes. Rumors started. People who knew them both whispered that Tara's reputation took a hit. The local yoga studio moved her name off promotional flyers. People assumed she was unprofessional. I suspect some friends of mine caught wind and quietly stopped responding to her texts. It wasn't revenge, it was natural. She burned a reputation by building it on deceit. Meanwhile, I had to rebuild the piece of myself that got shattered. I dug deeper into my gym routine, logging every lift, tracking every meal, sleeping 8 hours a night. I forced myself to plan social outings, a poker night with Mark and 2 other guys who'd seen me through my awkward phase. We joked about vampires, video games, and how stupid we all were as 20-somethings. There was a sense of relief in talking to guys who didn't sugarcoat things. One night, Mark slapped me on the back. "You made your bed, bro. Now lie in it, better than lying for some girl." I laughed, thinking, yeah, at least I'm not lying anymore. Professionally, my focus sharpened. I got promoted at work. My boss had noticed my consistency, my newly found drive. I realized wallowing in heartbreak was just another way of hiding behind excuses. I made sure to document everything: my workout progress, my client testimonials, my monthly income reports. Spreadsheets weren't sexy, but they were irrefutable. I felt in control again, like I had a seat at the table of my own life. I also reevaluated my finances. I'd spent maybe $2,000 total on dates, sushi bars, weekend mini trips, groceries. I cut my monthly subscriptions, streaming services, gym upgrades, all that. I moved out of my mother's basement and leased a small studio closer to downtown. It wasn't a palace, but it was mine. I set aside 6 months of rent in my savings account, call it a fortress. Emotionally, I hired a counselor. I'd always thought talk therapy was for privileged dudes with too much time on their hands. But bias aside, that counselor helped me see patterns. I'd equated value with attention from a pretty woman. That equation was toxic. She helped me identify red flags earlier: inconsistent stories, excuses when I asked simple questions, emotional stonewalling. Now I kept a mental checklist. Does her behavior match her words? That mental checklist saved me from walking back into another minefield. A month after she ghosted me, I downloaded a dating app, ironically called Steady. I swiped left at processed smiles and perfect lighting selfies. Then one profile caught my eye. Emma, 26, elementary teacher, marathon runner, sushi addict. Her bio said she raved about good coffee, good banter, and good people. I messaged her something lame like, "If your coffee is as strong as your jokes, I'm sold." She replied in 10 minutes with a smart aleck gif of a cat flexing a tiny bicep. We met at a local cafe, the kind of place you'd expect real conversations over lattes, not Death Star cappuccinos. She was straightforward. "Look, I've been on my own journey. I know what I want, I know what I don't." I thought about how I'd felt when Tara said that same line, and how it had turned out to be a trap. But Emma's eyes didn't flicker with anything but sincerity. We spent 90 minutes talking about teaching, running 10 Burmese chats, and why the best sushi place was actually a hole-in-the-wall joint behind the fire station. On the drive home, I realized I wasn't clutching the wheel like a man about to crash. I was relaxed, hands at 10 and 2, no sweat trickling down my spine. I still had guardrails up, but they felt healthy, no walls, just easy boundaries. I told Emma I wasn't ready for anything crazy, just wanted to see where things went. She said she felt the same. Neither of us romanticized love or forever. We just wanted something genuine. Now, looking back, I understand how I got snared. She tried to sell me the idea that I was special, that she needed me to feel whole. But in truth, I was just a convenience. I let my loneliness push me into making excuses for half-truths. I swallowed my gut uncertainly because I thought her experience made me worth something. In the male sense, I traded my self-respect for crumbs of attention. I learned that showing vulnerability isn't weakness. Sobbing on your counselor's couch can be a power move if it helps you see your own value. I learned that boundaries are lines in concrete, not chalk that can be erased. I learned to trust my gut. If something smells off, don't just adjust your mask and pretend it's fine. I learned to see red flags not as wall posts but as billboards screaming, "Danger ahead." She will face the fallout, divorce, a fractured reputation in her social and professional circles, friends who wonder why she can't keep her story straight. That's not revenge. It's the natural consequence of building something flimsy on lies. Meanwhile, I'm rebuilding myself from the ground up: physical health, mental clarity, financial security. I've started coaching at my old high school's recreational league on Saturdays, teaching kids how to deadlift safely and how to be honest with themselves. Every time a 14-year-old tells me, "Coach, I can't do it," I say, "Bullshit. You just haven't tried in the right way." It's my small way of paying it forward: tough love without bullshit. I'm 30% scar tissue, 70% new steel. I still feel the phantom ache when I see a hubby caller ID flash, but it's not as paralyzing. Now I channel it into squats, into spreadsheets, into honest connections. I've learned that real strength isn't about how much weight you can lift. It's about loading every barbell with the weight of your mistakes and bench pressing them into lessons. Someday, I'll find someone who doesn't juggle two lives, someone who meets me at eye level. Until then, I'm content with the guy in the mirror who's every day saying, "You got this." Because after all this, I do.